Well, hello there and welcome to this edition of the EV Revolution Show. My name is Kenneth McCoy, your host. Thanks for tuning in to this edition of the show where I have yet another all-electric vehicle to review. This time, I'm super excited and ecstatic to talk about the Mercedes-Benz 2025. This is the G580 with EQ technology. That's actually the name of it. It's a long name, and it's Mercedes' all-electric version of the infamous Gerlinde Electrified. That's how they call it. So my thanks to Mercedes-Benz Canada for allowing me the use of this press vehicle for a few days to boot around and get my sense on it. Now, of course, this vehicle isn't for everybody, right? This is pretty well at the top of the food chain when it comes to all electrics right now. That isn't a supercar, let's say. But you know, there are people that are interested in looking at this. I do see some on the roads, even one in my neck of the woods here in Southern Ontario. So sit back, relax, enjoy the show. Let me talk about this very interesting and very nice all-electric. All right, so I'm here in my usual filming spot to review this vehicle, to put on video my thoughts here. And I'm purposely parked in front of this container in the back because when you look at this and you look at the container behind it, there's a lot of similarities, right? And that's really the design of the G-Wagon, right? It is this box, it goes way back. There's a lot of heritage in this vehicle and, you know, has really moved up the food chain in the ranks of really high-end niche luxury SUV vehicles over the last decades. And Mercedes-Benz wanted to keep that in the all-electrified version of their G-Wagon technology. And in fact, the reason that they call this the G580 with EQ technology is Mercedes is now trying to get away from the EQ branding. You know, we have the EQS, we have the EQE, EQB, all this kind of stuff. And they're trying to move away from that and keep a more familiar naming convention in their vehicles. So like an electrified, you know, G-Wagon basically, with that EQ technology as well. So they're going back to an old letter plus a number scheme that people understand. And this is kind of leading the way in that naming convention. And also there is no gas-powered version that's modeled, that's called the G580. So the G580 is the number is only for the electrified version, the fully electric version that you see here. So it is something that will be identifiable as people get to know this particular brand and the naming conventions. Now it looks very similar to its internal combustion siblings, of course. Same shape, same basic design, a lot of the same features that you'll get in the gas versions, but even better features that you'll find here on the G580, and let me talk a little bit about that. Now, as you're looking at the video and pictures of this as I'm talking, you know, from a design, it's boxy, right? It is a familiar looking vehicle. If you've seen the G-Wagons, you know what they look like. So they've kept with that. And in fact, it actually bodes quite well to all battery technology. Because of the way that this is a big box on a frame, this is a body on a frame vehicle. Mercedes has developed the battery pack to sit inside the frame, the bottom frame of the vehicle. We know the batteries are typically between the axles, the front and rear axles of the vehicles, to actually add to the low center of gravity, all that weight down low, and it adds to structural rigidity. And this is the case here in Mercedes because they've designed and spaced out the cells to allow the structural reinforcements to tie into the frame. And that's one of the things I talk about to people a lot during my my talks about EVs, is that increased structural rigidity that all electrics can bring and increased safety benefits. So they've certainly kept on that, but you know, that also adds to a lot of handling characteristics, and especially when you're going off-road in this, to have that low center of gravity, not a high tip-over type of fashion, it gets you a lot more planted and a lot more availability for maneuverability and functioning with that extra weight. Now, because this is an off-road vehicle built for off-road use, yes, a lot of people do off-road these. I've watched some videos already in preparation for this. What Mercedes has done is they've put an underbody armor plate to protect the battery. It's about 130 pounds or so, this plating that's underneath, that adds to the weight of the vehicle, and that's basically between the axles to protect everything under there. Again, I go back to handling, that this is a capable off-road vehicle. there's a couple of reasons. One of the reasons is that this is a 4-motor setup. So there's a motor on every wheel of this G-Wagon, which allows instantaneous torque vectoring between those 4 wheels. So when you're up climbing rocks or deep dirt or whatever, to be able to torque vector instantaneously, basically, is a wonderful element to be able to keep you moving or get you out of a jam. And that's one of the unique features. Now, this isn't the only vehicle to offer that. There are others as well, but this is the first time that I'm aware of that Mercedes has done that in one of their vehicles, is put a motor on each wheel hub to give you that independence from a drive capability on each wheel. What that also allows, because those are old sealed units and this sits fairly high, is the availability to wade through water. And it's rated at about a 33.5-inch depth, wading depth, which is about almost 6 inches more than the gas equivalent model. But Mercedes thinks they could even go deeper. They're just kind of being a safer. So, you know, I'm sure there's videos out there of guys that are going deep. The problem is this doesn't have a snorkel. So if you really go too deep, you're going to get water in the air HVAC air intake. So not the engine air intake, but you'll get it in the HVAC and start getting water inside the compartment, the passenger compartment, and you don't want to do that. So I'm sure at some point they'll come out with a snorkel option, or somebody aftermarket will hook this up for those serious people that really want to go adventurous and off-road. But just again, to show you that you could have a city vehicle, an urban runabout, a highway road tripper that will carry a family and stuff around, yet gives you those capabilities for fairly extreme off-road situations. So it's definitely a testament to the G-Wagon's roots, and that Mercedes has continued with that DNA and heritage in the electrified version. So I've talked about some of its capabilities, but where does that power come from? So I mentioned that this does have a full floor length battery pack. Now the battery pack is 116 kilowatt hours in size, so pretty good size, a battery pack to get you decent range. Now this vehicle weighs almost 7,000 pounds, so it certainly isn't light, and you need that bigger battery to be able to get some range and move this kind of mass. It does move itself very efficiently because the EPA rated range on this is 385 kilometers or 239 miles. Now, I'm realistically seeing much more than that. I'm seeing about 400 kilometers right now in my range that I've been driving for a few days. I'm not done yet, but I expect to get similar, that well over the EPA range anyway that it's stated, which is good. Now, I mentioned the 4 motors. If we pop the hood here, you'll see that there's really nothing here. There's a cover and there's really nothing to do but put windshield washer fluid in here. And that's typical Mercedes fashion in the EVs, where they basically either lock the hood or just give you the ability to put windshield washer fluid. There's nothing in here that they want you to be concerned about and to look at, because they will cover that under their warranty and their maintenance programs if you need something to do. But those 4 motors, as I mentioned on each of the hubs, are combined to produce 579 horsepower. All right, that's good. You need that to move 7,000 pounds. But what's outstanding in this vehicle is the torque that it generates. And it can generate up to 859 pound-feet of torque. This does have a 2-speed transmission for low and for normal, low being more off-road, and it will concentrate the power more in there into those lower transmissions to give you, to really suck every pound-feet of torque that you need to move this thing up 45, let's say 40%, 45% grades, rocks, through mud, through rivers, all that kind of stuff. Oh yeah, of course, and take the family on vacation for a weekend with some luggage. They will do that quite competently as well. Now, from a charging perspective, it has the similar CCS standard combo port here for North America. You got J1772 and the bottom part for the rest of the CCS to get your fast charging speed. So nothing earth-shattering here. I have no idea if these are going to come out with NACS support or not, but I can tell you that in level 1, level 2 charging situations, it'll support up to 9.6 kilowatts. And on a fast charge, it will support up to 200 kilowatts. So that's very respectable. And what that means is that you'll be able to road trip, drive, let's say 3 hours, 3.5 hours, depending on the temperature, especially in the nice summer temperatures, probably a good 3 hours anyway. Stop for about 25 to 30 minutes or so to get back up to 80 to 90%, and then be on your way again. So that's a pretty good routine if you think about that traveling experience. In traveling in fairly relatively comfort, of course, because you would expect Mercedes to be comfortable, and I'll talk about that. So they do a good job in supporting both home and fast charging. All right, continuing going around the vehicles now, looking at the rear hatch and the cargo area before I go to show you the interior. This has the same type of rear entry system as the gas-powered G-Wagon. Also, what's unique to the electric vehicle, it has this smaller cargo space on the outside, which will support a small spare tire option if you want. I believe the case might be slightly bigger, I'm not sure. But in this particular configuration, it has a cargo case. So it actually opens up for cargo, and this is where the charging cord, one of the charging cords is stored. There's 2 of them that come with the vehicle. Pocket for stuff. I mean, you could put some pop, beer, whatever you want in there, depending on the temperatures. So it's got a nice little storage cubby that you can put some stuff, tools, whatever in there as well. And it locks when you lock the car, so you don't have to worry about anybody stealing something. So now for opening the rear hatch, similar for these push buttons on all the handles. And as you can see, it opens up like a door. It's hinged on the side versus a hatch on the top. And it opens up a pretty decent amount of cargo space. From behind the second row, as you see here, you get about 37 cubic feet, or about 1,047 liters. Put that second row down, and it increases, almost doubles it to 70 cubic feet and about 1,982 liters. Now, it is less than the gas-powered equivalents of these G-Wagons because the battery takes up a lot of the volume space here. There isn't a cavity, or this isn't sunken down a bit more to give you several more cubic feet of space. So you have to take that into consideration. So if you're looking at these, depending on what you're carrying, looking to carry. I can tell you though, I took some family earlier this week to the airport in this and had it set up for 3 people. So 1 in the back seat, 2 in the front. So it's a 60-40, so I put the 60 down, and I was able to get about 8 pieces of luggage, including 4 big like duffel bags, almost hockey-sized duffel bags, plus some large suitcases and some carry-ons and knapsacks in here. So because it's this nice big box, it does offer itself by that design to accommodate a good amount of storage space for stuff and headroom for people, all that kind of stuff. So it really is surprisingly bigger than you think it is when you start loading it up. And I'll try to show you how to put the seats down without blocking it too much, but it's a 2-step process. When you put those seats down, pull this little lever and lift up the padding for the bottom seat. As you can see, it swings up. Then there's another lever that you pull, and that will fold the seat down, make sure the headrests are down to give you that almost flat floor. The rear seats sit a little higher than the trunk space or the cargo space, so you have a couple of inches, maybe a 3 or 4 inch rise there in the middle, so it's not a true flat floor. But again, it will accommodate a lot of stuff in here, more than you'd probably think. All right, so for getting in the driver's side or the front, so similar, I've been using the steering wheel, but I just find that's much easier and much easier to get in here. Again, it's a comfortable environment. I'll show you the interior here in some of the B-roll. It's got your standard dual screens here, your Mercedes, infotainment, and MBUX solution here, whatever the current rev is. So it's pretty standard stuff. Your retro kind of round air vents, all that kind of stuff. A lot of use of chrome materials. This has a lot of carbon fiber elements. It's an Edition 1 product, so just a lot of niceties that add up to a really fancy looking vehicle. But everything's function, so everything that you need from a main perspective, like HVAC or lights, that kind of stuff is all button based, which is what I like. I do like that facets. Ergonomically enough for the cup holders. I personally couldn't fit my phone in the charging pad with the case. It's an iPhone 16 Pro Max, if I remember correctly. So or 15, one of the two, 16 I think. But with the case and everything, I couldn't fit it into that charging pad, but there is a wireless charging pad here, and then a couple of USB-Cs to plug it in if I need to, and another 12 volt, yes, another 12 volt under here as well in the center console. It has the Mercedes-Benz, kind of touch interface that I've shown on some of their other products. I'm not a huge fan of that, but I have been finding myself using it, like switching radio stations and this kind of stuff from time to time. I think everything is so close that it might be easy just to, you can use steering wheel controls as well as some of the screens. So that's kind of a personal thing. Cup holders and stuff are okay. I'd like them to be a bit bigger, but they do hold a big water bottle. Then you have this center console, which is adequate enough with a couple of USB-Cs, or at least one in there. Not huge, but adequate enough, similar to the other products that we've seen from Mercedes. So overall, a very nice and comfortable experience, which is what you would expect from a vehicle at this price point, but very, very nice, nicely pointed and very well built, of course. All right, for getting into the rear, before I show you the front and the interior, the good thing is there are grab handles on all the doors. The one on the front, kind of think it should be on the A-pillar, but it's not. It's kind of more in the door. But once you figure that out, so it's, whatever hand you want to use, because you do have to step up. So there are running boards here. Step up and then lean yourself in. It is a bit of a step up. Now I've got the headrest down, so I won't be able to lay all the way flat, but there's enough room here. One of the things I've realized about this vehicle is it's not huge inside. It looks bigger from the outside. There we go. Put that headrest up here. Get those out of the way. It looks big because of the box, and it's already off the ground, and it's got this big box that adds a lot more height to it. But when you get inside, I've got the seat where I have it, and I have a good amount of room, but about a knee. So somebody at 6 foot and somebody 6 foot behind them, they're going to feel that. Now this does recline a bit more of the seat, but that won't do a lot more for knee room. So something you need to be cognizant about if you're going to be carrying a lot of passengers is the rear. So it's actually smaller in here than I originally thought, and that one would think it is. It's got hard mat pockets. It's nicely, the use of materials is by far awesome. For the price point that this is, and being an MB product, it's going to have very high quality in the use of materials and what you have. Everything nice and soft touch, nice stitching. These have heated seats only in the back. There is a separate dual zone climate, so you do have the ability to change fan speeds in the vents, and a couple of USB, and also I believe a 110 plug, if I have it here. No, a 12 volt plug back here. So you got a 12 volt and a couple of USB-C ports to keep the passengers entertained to charge their devices, but not much else. So there is an option where you can get the screens that you may see in some other MB products. Otherwise everything else is nice, use of materials, all that kind of stuff, and it's comfortable and definitely will work back here. So driving the G580 is a very pleasant experience, as I've been saying. First of all, the suspension is very mild-mannered. Obviously, it has these great off-road capabilities, but for everyday driving, the strut spring suspension, it's not air, believe it or not, actually absorbs a lot of the big bumps and a lot of the roads anomalies quite easily. Obviously, it'll get jostled around in really big or undulating kind of road conditions, but it's a very refined ride, and that's what I would expect from a Mercedes-Benz product. So ride quality is really nice. It's very quiet, even though this is a box. It's not that aerodynamic, so you would expect a bit more wind buffeting and that kind of stuff, and it's not that bad. It's actually pretty good. I have the air conditioning on right now at a very low fan speed, just because it's 30 degrees Celsius outside and it's pretty hot in here, so I'm just trying to keep a little cool. And it's a very quiet and comfortable environment from that perspective. As I mentioned, the displays are your standard Mercedes-Benz MBUX system here, with buttons and everything easily accessible. I do like the physical buttons element, I really do. It's quite easy to change temperatures and stuff. Gear selector, windshield wipers, lights, everything is pretty easy to figure out here from a functionality perspective. One thing that this has is the dynamic seat option, or sport seat option, I forget how they called it. But what that means is that you can change the intensity of the side bolstering centers, side bolsters on these chairs. So what that means is that you can have them more inflated or deflated or closer to you for a more snug fit, and then in the dynamic mode, it offers the ability to hug you in like a cushioning element. So when you take a turn or a severe bump, the car senses that and will actually hug you on the side that you're taking the turn in, squeeze you into the seat a little bit nicer to keep you from going like this. A really cool feature. My wife calls them the Hug Me seats, which is a really appropriate name. Some of the BMW products have that as well. This has it. It's a very nice feature to have, quite enjoyable, and makes longer driving quite comfortable as well. Oh, as I mentioned, there's lots of power that comes out from these quad motors here. Ridiculous amounts of power, to be honest with you. So I've been riding it just in comfort mode all week. There really is no eco mode. There is no one pedal driving that I could find either. It's either off for regen or a couple of different settings. I think extra strong, normal, and then off. And there's an intelligent as well, which will do regeneration based on slowing down and then stop it. It'll kind of work on its own. There is no hold function as well that I could find, so you actually have to stay pressed on the brake pedal if you're at a stop. Otherwise, you let go, the creep is engaged, and the vehicle will move forward like a normal automatic vehicle will, gas-powered today. So it has a lot of those features that people that are coming potentially from ICE Vs to get into this will have a similar driving experience. As I mentioned, it has a two-stage transmission for the low gearing and the regular gearing, and you'll hear that at times, but it all works seamlessly and is very quiet. Now, from an off-road capability perspective, this does have a off-road cockpit function, which will bring up things like angles, your lat and long, all kinds of different elements here that you can tracks if you want to program tracks and stuff like that. Explore tells you how your suspension travel is, how power is going to the wheels. There's even a camera as well. You can record it through the cameras. So it gives you that ability to go off-road and have a lot of good information, including visible and technology information from technology to keep you in a very safe off-roading manner. So that's one cool thing about this. Kind of like the Jeeps and that kind of stuff that have those off-road packages. So this is really cool to have. Now, one feature that I won't be able to show you because they really don't have any roads around here that will do that, and it's not a wet road today, is something called the G-turn. And I'll put some rolling video in here. I'll loop this video here so you can see it, because the video that I could find was very short, but it basically, because we have a motor on every wheel, it allows you to torque vector, as I mentioned, those wheels independently of each other. So if you think about counter rotating the diagonals of the vehicle into the wheels, that gives you the ability to spin like a top, to spin without moving forward or backwards, to spin on the spot that you're on, and that's called the G-turn. You can either do a 90, 180 degree turn or full 360 if you want, simply by putting it into the low mode and pressing the button and pressing whichever paddle from the right paddle or the left paddle and holding it. You don't do anything else. You just leave the wheel straight. Don't press the brake or accelerator. You just press the paddle and hold that one side, and that will send power to the wheel so that you will spin on your axis basically without moving forward or backward. It's pretty cool. I've seen some off-roading videos where guys have done this in very tight kind of road situations where they've been on top of a steep hill and all they have is this little dirt trail that they're on, and they have the ability to spin and do a 180 right where they are. So I can see this as not only a gimmick, because it's pretty cool, kind of like tank turn that we've seen from the Hummer and from some of the Rivian stuff out. So it's nothing that's new, earth-shattering from a technology, but it is a really cool feature that this vehicle offers that gives you that added ability to navigate off-roads. And I was talking to somebody this morning who does off-roading, and I mentioned about this turn stuff, and he was saying, oh man, that's really handy. I can see where that's coming in, because I go into sometimes into some tight places, and it would be really cool to be able to get out of those spaces, even just doing a 180 kind of situation, to be able to do that. So there is definitely value. It's not just a gimmick. It looks really cool, and I encourage you, there are some videos out there that people are spinning on wet pavement. Mercedes doesn't recommend doing it on dry pavement because the wheels grip so much that it really was really hard to do this on dry pavement. Probably won't be able to do it because the wheels just grip that well. If there's any grip, they will not let you do the G-turn. So you need to be under some gravel situations, a little bit of loose materials or water or mud or something like that as well, that will allow you to do that. Pretty cool feature though, and I thought that that's worth mentioning from this vehicle perspective. So overall, like right now I'm going on a dirt road. It's a little bit bumpy, it's a little bit noisier, and I'm probably sounding quite the same as I was when I started this driving component to the video here. That it's just that good of a vehicle to allow you to be nice and quiet here and comfortable in this G580. So again, overall, ergonomically, all the options, they've done a fantastic job. So everything that I've talked about, of course, this, as I mentioned, this is a unique vehicle, really at kind of the top price point from a Canadian EV perspective. I believe that when you option this out, you can get this even more than the Sapphire Air from Lucid, which is somewhere around 250,000 or 240,000, I believe, Canadian. Haven't looked at it for a while, and that's their top spec. This starts at a base price of $206,000 Canadian, and as optioned, this particular vehicle is at $247,200. So, and I've seen them up as high as $269,000 on some of the dealer websites locally here in Southern Ontario. So you can get quite up there for that price point. So again, this is not a mass market EV vehicle. This is not an EV for everybody. This is an EV for people that have the money, the disposable income to buy these and enjoy these vehicles. It really is a nice vehicle, albeit a little bit smaller interior than I would thought it would have been at that price point, but the capabilities and the handling of this vehicle are outstanding. As an urban runabout, as a vacation destination to go vehicle, and everything in between, off-roading, all that kind of stuff. You know, remember, as a family hauling vehicle, this thing will do a quarter mile in 12.6 seconds at 108 miles per hour at the end of that quarter. It's pretty fast for a family SUV off-road vehicle that's stock from the factory. So you've got to give credit where credit is due from an electrification standpoint. I mean, obviously, I've got to recommend this for those that are interested and that can get into this kind of a market. It is a very outstanding and capable vehicle. You know, you saw some of the elements, things I talked about in my driving. It just really, really handles well. And it again has that Mercedes-Benz quality, the luxurious part of it, a lot of technical features that go even beyond what I've described on this video, and a really good amount of electric range, very adequate by today's standards, good charging to get you places, and a lot of safety elements as well to keep occupants protected and safe while driving. Has this turned some heads? Yeah, I've had a lot of people kind of turn around, you know, passing a bus stop or whatever, people look at it, because you don't see a lot of these G-Wagons on the road. But they are on there, and as one of the things, every time I get a test vehicle, I tend to see more of the same vehicle when I'm driving one. I guess it's just the way it is, human nature. Now, remember that, you know, these have been around since 1979 when Mercedes introduced the G-Wagon. And of course, it was just, you know, kind of an initial 4x4, but it's really morphed into a luxury icon with a lot of even higher end offshoots than what you're seeing here today. So a very well done job by Mercedes-Benz, an absolute joy to drive a vehicle, more power than I would need. I tell you, I kind of wish they had a chill mode in this to kind of, you know, take away a little bit of that power, because it's so easy to get going quite quickly in this without even thinking about it. It's got, you know, the different regen, as I mentioned, and stuff like that. So just a very nice vehicle, an excellent job by Mercedes-Benz.